Hello everyone and welcome to Avantika Designeering series or ADS as we like to call it. Every week on Wednesday, we feature design and technology leaders who share their professional journey, their thoughts on their domain of work, and designeering where the world of design and engineering meet. Make sure you follow us on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And with that, let's continue with your show.
Inclusive design has become a buzzword in the design community. We live in a world that is becoming more digitized by the day. And as more and more products and services move online, companies need to ensure that no potential customer is being left behind. In fact, the brands that fail to take proactive steps to incorporate inclusive design are likely to struggle to engage with their more impaired users. And that's why in this episode, we interact with Ramesh Kozhissery, who is the Director of Design at Walmart Global Tech. With over a decade and a half years of experience, his expertise include user experience design, strategy, user research, and design leadership. Today, on our journey of discovering designeering, we talk to him about add to cart inclusive design. Hello, Ramesh. Welcome to Avantika Designeering podcast series. It's an honor and pleasure hosting you on our show today.
Thank you, Rohit and Avantika University for inviting me to this design editing podcast series.
So, as our ice breaking question, over the years, Ramesh, as teams have grown more diverse, dispersed, digital, and dynamic, collaboration has sort of become more complex. Walmart, you've set up the design team at Walmart Global Tech India, formerly known as the Walmart Labs. How do you manage to lead teams with which land up designing for a very diverse cultures and set of customers?
Yes, Rohit. If you look at, like what you said, right? Like, so today we live in a very, complex world as well, right? Like, and so our teams and the setup as well, right? And what we've done is, made sure that diversity and inclusion are, very critical in setting up the teams, right? Like, so, and we made sure that, that is primarily taken care of, right? With teams being dispersed geographically, right? It is important to make sure that the teams operate as one unit and towards a common goal. So to do that, right, first and foremost, it's really important to establish trust, right? When you have diverse teams across location, right? Once you establish trust, then you connect well and the collaboration becomes easy. Right? Also, bringing the teams together for regular check-ins, discussions, and ideations can really help foster a well knit team, right? And then, the location really doesn't matter, right? Every team knows what they're responsible for, what the common shared goal is, and everyone drives towards it. And when I joined Walmart, I think the scale of Walmart is so huge, right? Like, so it was important for me to be open minded and be more curious, right? Like, so I soaked in as much as I can to understand, the various different businesses, domains, and really understand what works well and what doesn't, right? Because we have so many different teams and so many different domains, right? And once I started to understand what that nitty-gritty is, right? Like, and then it became, easy to understand and integrate some of these differences as we started building out the teams. And you know and as we built the teams, right, and I think one of the key ingredients in any team is the team to have the right skills, right? When I talk of skills, it's not just the design skills, right, but cognitive interpersonal skills, right, which helps the team to network and collaborate with trust, right? I think these are the key ingredients, if I were to say, right, that is essentially required to kind of set up the team. And then we just followed it along through my journey in Walmart over the past 8 years, and we've been able to set up a fairly a large size design community in Walmart Global Tech India.
Super. So I'll come to more elaboration and some more questions on that. But before that, talking about your journey, you received a bachelor's degree in engineering, and today you are director of design at Walmart Global Tech India. How did this transition happen from the world of technical to the world of creativity? How what happened in this entire journey?
Yeah, it's a really an interesting journey, if I were to say, right? I got my engineering degree in printing technology from BMS College of Engineering, Bangalore, and I mean, it it wasn't like my first choice, right? Like, so I attended the common entrance test in Bangalore, and then I decided, given my rank, I thought, maybe I should try out this course, right? And then BMS was a very good college. And I wanted to be part of that college. And out of the courses that were available, I thought maybe printing would be the right choice for me. Maybe, I thought I was a little bit inclined to the creative side from my school days as well. And I thought maybe this is the place I need to be. And I joined printing technology. And printing technology actually, was a course where, there were a lot of various different subjects taught. So there were, printing subjects for sure, right? Like, typesetting, lithography, offset printing, color reproduction, right? There were a lot of printing related subject. But what also ended up happening is, we had to learn a lot of other subjects like, computer science, applied electronics, a whole bunch of things. So that kind of gave, both the technical aspects as well as the printing side of things. And in the end, what happened is, I learned a lot of things from the printing courses, right? Like, one is on print design, typesetting, composition, photography, use of digital editing softwares. I think these all kind of helped me, put together and, create that step for, getting into, the digital medium as well, right? And then when I finished my engineering, I joined a publishing company, and that is when I actually started of making that leap from the print to the digital medium. And I was contemplating what should I do, right? Like, because it's not like I have a computer science engineering degree, so to say, to get into the IT side of things, right? And what I did is to join a web technology course, a 6 months course I joined, where I could actually pick up some web technologies, and even though I was not adept at coding, I could pick up some basic JavaScript, HTML skills, which helped me through my initial part of my career, right? And then after that course, I applied a lot of companies, and then I got my first breakthrough in an e-commerce company. And that's where my actual journey began into the design world, so to say, the digital design world. And I think over a period of time, I've kind of learned a lot of skills through my career, right? At at my first company, it was all e-commerce, so I kind of learned a lot of the e-commerce related aspects. And then I moved into an enterprise world at HP. So it was primarily how the design of business applications, the complexity of business tools, and other things came into play, right? So learned that, and then switched to research, right? And then I learned a lot about user research from my fellow colleagues, because I wasn't into research or trained researcher, right? So I learned quite a bit on the user research from my fellow colleagues, and then I moved into a different domain, right, at RSA Security, which was primarily a security domain, right? Like, and then looking at how we can build great products for our network engineers or security analysts, and then uh, in 2012, one of my friend and colleague, he asked me if I want to explore an opportunity with Walmart, and then I said, why not? Let's give it a shot. And then I joined Walmart, and And I think from there onwards, my journey with Walmart began. So if you look at it, like throughout my journey, right, like I'm actually thankful to my friends and colleagues over the years who have supported, mentored, and helped me progress through this journey, right? Like, and I think this is, it's really important, right? Like as traverse through the journey, building that connections with, your industry peers, colleagues, and friends, and that'll kind of really help you take the journey that you want.
Interesting. In fact, you've been with Walmart for 8 plus years. It's not trendy, for professionals to stick around with their organizations for such a long time. What inspires you to be with Walmart and keep continuing your journey there?
So, Rohit, if you look at my career journey, right, like, so I've never had short stints, right? If you look at my first company, right, like I spent close to 4.5 years, right? And then that's a type code. And then at HP, again, I was there for 5.5 years at RSC Security slash EMC, around 3.5, 4 years, or a little over that. And then Walmart, 8 plus years, right? And I think, like, if you were to, truly understand a business or a domain, right, like you need to really spend time, right? And I think that's what I primarily did at most of these companies, right? Like, I mean, at any domain or any business, right, there's so much to learn, right? So you need to spend some time, go deep, right? I think that's what, I look at, right? And that's why probably I've spent more time in each of these companies, right? Whether it's the first company, which was into e-commerce, right? Like that's an interesting space to be in, right? And then with HP, I had the opportunity to work on enterprise applications as well as on the research side of things, right? So that kept me interested. And then security was another domain, right? Like, so which is not well, known along with design, right? Like, so how can, design can help some of the security products, I think. Some of these interesting areas and domains kept me going. And when I joined Walmart, the scale of Walmart is huge, and then there is ample opportunities to kind of, go explore things. You can go deeper into any of these domains, whether it's supply chain, whether it's merchandising, whether it's, the customer experience, right? There's so much opportunity that, it just gave me a lot of opportunities to keep exploring, right? And then I just went along with the flow.
So, Ramesh, another interesting thing that I came across while you were sharing your journey is that you clearly made the transition from the user interface world to the user experience world. Though both of these are connected at some level, what I wish to know is, did you need to develop different skill sets, and how do you actually keep up with the changes with so many new concepts, frameworks, and systems which are being introduced? I mean, the entire world of user experience, user interface, both of them are so dynamic, and there's so many new things that keep coming across, keep getting introduced in the industry so often. How do you manage to keep pace with what's new and also your skill sets?
Yeah, so like I said, right, like my first shift was from the print to the digital medium, right? And then when I actually got a break, with my first company into it was, if you look at the early 2000, right, like so UX wasn't that a common phrase, right? Like it was more on the web design and other things, right? And that's where as I mentioned, right, like when I picked up some basic HTML and JavaScript skills, right, through my course, that kind of helped me, right, put together design plus do some bit of coding, right? So it was that, right, like it purely execution, right? And over in time and again, as you get better at it, right, like then you start to see a higher order of things, right? Like, so okay, right, like so if once you start building out screens, then you actually, then you start understanding, does the screen really work, right? Is it actually helping the user to get things done in the right way at the right moment, right? So over a period of time, right, like so we started thinking more and more about users, right? Like so putting the user, you could call the user centered uh, design methodology, right? And a lot of these concepts started coming into the forefront, right? Like, and as we started to learn some of these concepts, we started putting these back into practice, right? Like, given a problem statement, right? Like, how do you go about doing the design for a given problem statement, right? You don't just get onto screen design, right? Like, you try to understand why why is this needed, talk to users, understand what is it that they are trying to achieve, and how can design enable something to be achieved in a easy and a simplified way, right? So I think it was a gradual transition, right? Like, and over a period of time, a lot of these things are learning, through trainings, through attending conferences, to talking to various different people and seeing how different teams are doing things in a different way, right? and and that kind of set the tone, right? Like, learning is always continuous, right? Like, so irrespective of where, at what level of your career you are, you need to kind of keep learning, right? And developing additional skills as you move through your career path is really important, right? And and these skills can come in handy and can be very resourceful, right? Like, sometimes at some point of your career, right? Like, so you might not have all the resources to execute things, right? Like, when you are equipped with some of these things, you can actually go all in and get things done. And as we learn new concepts, frameworks, and systems, right? Like, so we will be able to quickly adapt to the needs of users, business, and environment, right? I mean, if you're not nimble, right, like learning new things, how user behaviors are shifting and changing, right, we'll not be able to adapt and provide the best experience for our target users, right? And this is very crucial, right? Constant learning, right? And then being able to adapt to the ever changing world we live in today, right? I think this is core to any designer, for that matter, right? So, and I think that's how I've kind of traversed through this transition from print to digital to UI to UX.
Hey, did you know if Walmart were a country, it would be the 42nd largest economy in the world? Things that I also caught on from what you mentioned in your journey is this entire concept of design labs. Now we kind of see this growing as a trend in a lot of large companies. The question that I have, and something that I'm really curious about, is why are they separately called design labs and not just addressed as a design department in companies? Why the entire connotation of design labs?
Uh, an interesting question, Rohit, right? See, if you look at design, right, like, so design is an integral part of any product development process. You would have seen, often we've come across this Venn diagram where UX is shown as the intersection of technology, business, and design, right? If we were to put that in practice, right, that then it means that there needs to be a tighter synergy between product, engineering, and design teams, and all these teams coming together as a single entity or a unit to solve a customer or a business problem. Again, nomenclature of whether it needs to be called as a design team or labs is again subject to the nature of work being done, right? Sometimes organizations where there's a lot of blue sky, conceptual work being done, very heavy user research focused work being done, right? Like, so they could be termed as design labs, right? And some organization where it's a regular product development work, right? And there are still they are called as still design teams. But again, irrespective of the nomenclature, right? Like, so design is going to be an integral part. And then and a lot of companies, whether it's called as design labs or design team, right? Like, there are teams that are working on design led innovations, right, across the spectrum. So I think the net or the key thing is that I think design is integral part of the development process. So that's how I would put it as.
Interesting. In fact, that's a very unique way of looking at the entire thing. And while you were talking about it, at Walmart, and talking about your workplace a little, One of the interesting things that I came across is the entire focus on inclusion as one of its core value, and the teams adopt a design for all approach to develop products and services that are accessible to all. The question that I have is, how do you develop these skill sets and focus among team? In fact, what's interesting is inclusion has a very unique definition at Walmart in your team, because you are not only talking about being inclusive with respect to India as a country, but globally to different cultures and customers there. So how do you develop these skill sets among team members and this entire outlook?
Yeah, as you rightly said, right? Like inclusion is one of our core values, right? And as a design team, we want to make sure that the products that we design and develop are accessible for all. I think inclusive design is for all, right? Like, so I think being inclusive can really help, everyone, irrespective of whether somebody is, able or disabled, right? And that is something that we wanted to establish, when we didn't have this, the accessibility team that was set up in the early days, but now we have actually a small but nimble accessibility team to drive an inclusive, design approach to all the products we design, right? So, and the objective of this team is, one is to kind of evangelize, what accessible design is all about. To one is to the design fraternity in India, as well as to the product and engineering stakeholders as well, right? So, and you know the team helps train designers to help them understand what accessibility is all about, what are some of the things that they need to keep in mind when designing, um, and also to the engineering folks, what are some of the framework level aspects that they need to take care of when they are developing the code. And finally, the team also tests it out, right? Like, so they test the code to make sure that it is compatible with devices that are used for disabled people, right? Like whether it's screen readers or head mouse or any of those devices. And I think constant awareness and helping train the teams to understand accessibility is key to anything that we do, right? And being inclusive, I think that is the driving force behind design for all objective.
So, that's a very interesting thought process, Ramesh. And one of the questions that I'm intrigued to ask, from what you just mentioned, that it's very hard to duplicate the feeling of solving a complicated design problem, of witnessing your own creativity, logic, and determination into the delight of users. And in fact, better yet, past success helps us to pave the way for future solutions when designers can actually utilize methods and tools that benefited previous projects. The question that I have here is, how can designers assess the negatives and positives of past design wins and use them in future projects?
Yeah, I think it's a very, again, an interesting question, right? Like, so I think before I answer that, right, like we need to understand what are the various different types of projects, right? And not all projects are the same, right? I see various different levels of designer engagement, right? Like at a high level, if I look at it, right, like, so there are three categories that I would say, right? Like, so one is completely a new product development, right? Second is an iterative, or a, like, there's already an existing product and we need to build out new features, right? And third is a completely a migration project, right? Which means that you have a legacy system and you need to move from that into a new tech stack, right? So, and for each of these, the level of engagement that the designer goes, or the process, I think it's slightly different, right? For new development, there's a lot of scope in bringing some fresh perspectives, right? Like, so understanding from a research perspective, right? Like, what are some of the things that we want to actually, bring in into this new product, right? Or it could be like a new design language that we want to pilot as we, kickstart this new product venture, right? And similarly, there is quite a few things, right? But for an existing product, right, like designers may have to work within the limitations of that product, right? And also, right, like there might not be a lot of scope for drastic changes. And for migration projects, when you're moving from a legacy stack to a newer one, in here there is again an opportunity to build a better experience as well. It's not just plain screen to screen migration, right? Like there's an ample opportunity to improve the experience considerably as well. So whichever may be the type of project that you are in, right, you learn a lot of things, right? What worked well, you could try it for other projects. What didn't work, you introspect and see why it didn't go well, right, and what could have been done better. So in irrespective of whether you are working in a new product development, iterative one, or a migration project, you learn a lot from all these experiences, right? Like it need not be just on the design front, right? It could be just from the interactions in terms of you have with engineering stakeholders or product stakeholders in terms of negotiating features, negotiating design, priorities and other things. Each has its own set of flavors, and I wouldn't say you win or lose. You don't win or lose. You learn from the experience, right? So that's what I would say, right? So if something didn't work, learn from why, learn as to why it didn't work, and then and don't keep that as a burden, right? Like, so just keep moving, right? Nothing, like if you look at, I mean this is a classic example, right? Like if you look at any product, right, if you look at Facebook or any Google or any of those products, right, like if you look at the transition, right, like if you look at the first design that was put up in their early journey, right, to what they are, right, it's a constant evolution, right? And sometimes we feel, oh look, how that time, at that point of time, this was this the design that we did, right? But yet again, right, like at that point of time, at that context, at that you know need of the hour for the users, right, like so that was probably the best solution that was built out, right? It's just a constant learning that you get from various uh, types of projects that you are in, right? And then you utilize what worked well, and then and keep improvising, right? There is no set formula for any of these things.
And while we also spoke about keeping pace with the changing dynamics in the world of user experience design, my next question comes from there, that as the field keeps evolving, we need to explore new methods for measuring emotional response using technologies, say, borrowed and refined from neuroscience and human biology. And there are still significant challenges to implementing these new measurements. What I wish to know is what, according to you, is the future of the methods that are widely used to study emotional responses?
Yeah, absolutely, right. So I mean it's a challenging area to kind of measure, right? Typically in a lot of designers rely on the qualitative feedback from users to gauge the experience of the product, right? And of course quantitative methods like SUS, NPS, CSAT, these are all commonly used, right? Again, if you look at the various different frameworks, right, like I think one that I kind of like is the Google's heart metrics, like which is happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, and task success, right? So if you look at just the happiness quotient, right, like so what is happiness, right? Like happiness is an emotional response to an outcome, right? And uh, uh, and in that framework, it's kind of explicitly captured through, again, it's a lot of these things have to be explicitly captured, right, like through user satisfaction surveys, app ratings, reviews, NPS, etc., right? And there's another thing that I was actually reading through also, which is called as the net emotional value, right? Like so, which is derived when you combine all the feelings of your users, positive and negative. And when you kind of summate all these emotions, right, what's the final emotional value is, right? So, which is basically, the positive minus negative, and then that would be the positive emotions minus the negative emotions. That would give you the net emotional values, right? So, if you look at a lot of these frameworks or measurement methodologies that are there, right? Like a lot of these are very explicit, right? Like, so you are, sending out a survey, or you're asking user to kind of rate it, right? And then you kind of take all these values and then kind of come up with a score to define it, right? I mean, it would be interesting to see if at some point of time, though, through AI, if we can implicitly derive some of these things. So, and then that can be like, what to say, a good way for designers to kind of, see that. Like, let's say you do a MVP launch, and then, 1 week into the, launch, the system then provides you feedback. Hey, look, this is how the emotional score or the emotional response for this app is, without having to explicitly solicit feedback from the users. I think that would be the day where you could really say, with a lot of the emerging technology, we can actually measure these very implicitly.
Hey, did you know Walmart in 2005 had a singles night where people had bows on their cart if they were looking for someone? I mean, this sounds so exciting. A powerful idea. If someone is able to do this is going to be really, really interesting. And I'll come down to another question on AI in a moment. But one more interesting things, and especially where you've also been working is in the recent years, modern digital technologies such as the cloud, IoT, drones, robotics, and others have made the traditional logistics industry more advanced and agile as well. In fact, today's customer require seamless and more transparent buying experiences, which businesses can deliver by designing customer centric supply chain networks and automating logistics processes. The question that I have for you is, what are the key factors that designers should keep in mind while designing systems for logistics and supply chain specifically?
I think irrespective of the domain, Rohit, right? Like, so there are technologies in the form of IoT, drones, etc., which can be used as tech interventions, right? So as designers, right, my primary guidance is that look beyond the screens, right? Not all the interfaces are in the screen, or all the interaction modalities need to be on the screen, right? So this is where a more holistic approach in terms of thinking the overall problem area and the solution, right, needs to happen, right? So, and again, going a step above, right, like, so understanding the customer journey, the ecosystem, getting a broader perspective of how things are, right? And not just looking at the area that you are working in, right? Like, so starting to elevate and seeing things above what you are currently looking into can give a lot of perspective. And I think the more you go deeper, will start to uncover a lot of the opportunities. So, and that's why I emphasized earlier as well, right? Like, so, getting more and more deeper into any domain, whether it's logistics or supply chain, right, like, can help you uncover a lot of these potential opportunities. The more deeper you understand, the better you will be able to identify the intervention points, which can help you build out a seamless and a transparent experience for our customers, right? So then it would be easily identified. Hey, look, what if we use some kind of, let's say, a beacons here, right? Like, would that help somebody who's working in a warehouse, or somebody who's navigating a store? Can that really help? So then, if you can kind of start weaving in those experiences, right? Like, so non screen based interventions into that overall experience, right? Then it can actually, you can feel that seamless and a transparent, you know, flow coming across the entire journey. So the more you can soak into, understanding some of the technology aspects, right, and the problem area that you are working in, the better you will be able to innovate great experiences for your target users.
Interesting. In fact, what's coming out of our conversation, Ramesh, is more and more interesting ideas that a lot of our listeners could actually pick up and create exciting innovations around, which could really become the unicorns of future. So all the future entrepreneurs among designers and technology, techies who are listening to our show, these are some interesting pointers for you to capture. And moving from here to another question, Ramesh, is interaction design operates at the boundary of human and digital things. In fact, designers now have the responsibility of making sense of this continuously evolving digitally mediated world. And the design outcomes of interaction design are increasingly on interconnected platforms where a design choice causing a small change in one part of the system can lead to ripples throughout the larger systems. My question is, how can designers be system thinkers that identify points for design interventions and think of their design as a part of the entire evolving ecosystem out there?
Yes, right, right. So, I mean, it's like a extension. I think some of the points I covered in my previous answer as well, right? Like, if you typically look at designers, designers are adept at design thinking, and along with that, it'd be good to build some muscle around system thinking as well, because this will help broaden the horizon and start viewing systems from a broader perspective, right? Like seeing the overall structures, the patterns, the cycles in systems, rather than just seeing some specific events or flow within their product ecosystem that they are working. And the more you actually start doing it, it will start you know helping the designers think broadly, right? I mean, it's really difficult as well, right? Like, so because you might not have the time to kind of go through that entire ecosystem. A lot of times you're struggling with timelines and other things. But as and when you get opportunity, I think it's good to kind of put those pieces in place and see, okay, so now I'm working on this product A, right? Like, so how does this get connected to product B, right? And what are the inputs that go from A to B, right? And is there something that's feeding into the product A, right? And is there anything beyond that? Are these products talking to any other systems, right? Like, so, and then start building that complete ecosystem in terms of how the entire ecosystem is placed, right? So you will start getting, right, like, so a complete understanding of how something flows from point A to point B, but you might be just working on, let's say, a subsystem of a point A. So I think the better you start getting that understanding more, like, that will help you be better at solving the systemic problems, right? And but not just solving, just okay, so as a user I need to do this thing, so I need to maybe probably add a bunch of fields here and then complete the workflow. So that's where I was telling in my earlier answer as well, right? Like, so we should start looking beyond the screens, right? Like, so screen is not just the only modality of interaction, right? So as we start elevating more beyond the screens, that's when we'll start coming up with innovative solutions. And I think that takes time as well, right? Like, but consciously having that at the back of your mind is really useful.
One of the other things with these screens and AI also that you mentioned earlier, in fact, designers are rather optimistic thinking about the impact that AI has on the design community. you know Ramesh, it would be great if you could share with us what benefit will the design community get from the technology shift with AI coming in. What will be the new creative options for designers?
I think we'll see a lot of opportunities that AI can help or aid designers in their legwork, right? Right. I think a good example would be the Google's auto draw, right? Like, Not every designer has an artistic side to them. A lot of we've seen engineers turned designers. We've seen finance people turned designers, right? So not everybody may have an artistic side to them, right? Like, and I think Google AutoDraw is a good example where designers can complete their rough sketches into polished ones, right? Like so, and it's kind of helping the designers, but not feeling that they don't have the artistic side. They're not able to create those polished sketches and other things, right? Like that's one of the examples, right? So similarly, right, like even for personalization or for data driven design inputs, right? And again, right, like so coming back to the question of how do you measure emotional response, right? Today we do that implicitly, right? Like so maybe at some point of time designers get those inputs automatically telling that, okay, hey, for this feature that you've launched, this is the emotional score that response that the users are having. And maybe it could suggest certain things, right? Like so maybe this is why this response is, so that designers can then tweak those interactions or flows and then launch another an updated version of the feature or the screen that they have developed. And then the AI system can then again provide the feedback back, telling, hey, look, now your emotional response to this updated feature is better than what you have already released. And I see there's a lot of potential. We are yet to uncover it, but there is a lot of potential with AI aiding the designers.
Interesting, and I'm sure that there are going to be very exciting opportunities, for both designers and techies operating. And that brings us to our last question, Ramesh. Is that at Avantika University, we've coined this term called as designeering, which is the blended approach of design and engineering. My question is that while in the entire recording we spoke about how both of these worlds are converging, do you think that that in reality actually this philosophy works, and has it worked for you personally in terms of building meaningful experiences for your customers?
Yes, absolutely, right. As designers, right, we a lot of times we conceptualize, and conceptualize ideas, bring a lot of those ideas into some tangible form, right? And people are able to visualize them and see how a product would look like or behave, right? And engineering is what it takes to bring that concept into its true form. So again, right, like so as designers, if they are equipped to understand some of these technology aspects or some of the engineering aspects, right, like it'll really help, right? And I mean, as you progress through your career, right, like often you might come across various scenarios, right, like where you're allowed to collaborate with engineering teams, and you will be in a better position to understand their viewpoint, as well as you will be in a better position to negotiate, some of design interventions that you need to build as part of the product development process. And sometimes some of these engineering skills can come in nifty, and you can be pretty resourceful in maybe just building out certain things quickly to kind of validate some of the hypotheses that you had while conceptualizing the product. And I think it is truly helpful. And as we are getting into more of this interconnected and a smart world, right, I think a lot of these things, having designers equipped with some of these aspects would really help in shaping them as better designers in the future.
Absolutely. And that was lovely actually recording with you, listening to so many interesting thoughts. In fact, I would call this entire conversation as conversation of multiple ideas that that people can choose from, and build really interesting future innovations around. Thank you so much, Ramesh, for doing this. It was a pleasure hosting you on our show.
Thank you, Rohit, and it was an honor for me to be part of this podcast session as well. Thank you.
Hey there, we hope you enjoyed our show. Do write to us on ads@avantika.edu.in. We look forward to your opinions, feedbacks, and suggestions of speakers you would like us to host on this show. Do tune in our channel next week on Wednesday for a new story on Hubhopper or wherever you get your podcast from. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter.